Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be joined by Beans on Toast ahead of the release of his new album, The Toothpaste and the Tube, on the 1st of December. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Beans on Toast, to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on today. How are you doing?
Yeah, great to be back. I'm like I said, I'm rushing around a little bit. It's first day of tour, so I've just fed some hungry musicians in my kitchen, and just it's always a bit scatterbrainy before you leave. You know, I sort of walk my daughter to school, and then everything's. But it's always that way. And then the minute you get in the van and drive, then everything kind of calms down, basically. So it's a bit of the sort of like it's the opposite of the calm before the storm. It's the storm before the calm, before the storm.
That makes a lot of sense. It does. Especially as I say you've got a lengthy tour coming up, so obviously a lot of prep goes into these things, and obviously today is the day it all kicks off in Tunbridge Wells, I believe. So obviously it's going to be
yeah. And I got back from America about 6 days ago, and then with the album is out next week. So I've been kind of signing all the vinyl and packaging them up and ready to sort of, doing the sort of record label side of things as well. Not complaining, but yeah, no. It's been a hectic week.
Yeah, it's always good to be busy in this industry for sure, because it means things are going well. So obviously, I just wanted to start out with the latest single that you've put out, Send Me a Bird. Such a beautiful, beautiful song. And obviously, listeners can go and check that out on our playlist and on obviously streaming platforms. What could you tell us, Beans, about the song? What are the themes behind it?
It's what a song about. Communicating with the dead via the form of birds, I suppose. It's definitely one of the more powerful songs that I've written. And I say that due to the reaction that people have from it, rather than sort of anything else. I actually wrote it. I wrote it last year on Halloween, which when the veil between the worlds is thinner, and it was very much as a lot of my sort of favorite songs that I've written. It was kind of plucked from thin air almost, and wrote the whole thing in one sitting, and it was. The initial thing, it wasn't written about one specific person, but I was with my daughter. She does these little football classes in this old church hall around the corner. And she was misbehaving, and I dragged her out of the hall to give her a telling off, effectively. Yeah. And when I pulled her outside, and she went, "Dad, look at that blue tit." And there was this little blue tit just sat on the floor right next to us, like acting in a way that birds would not normally act. So I sort of, she's only 5. So I said, "Oh, look, this is really strange. You wouldn't normally get this close to a bird." And I put my hand down, and the blue tits sat on my hand. Wow. And we both stood there, and it was like in pure amazement. It was like, wow, what, and I said, this is not normal at all for birds like this to be able to be this close. And I said, perhaps it's injured. And then the bird flew away, and Ren got away without getting told off, and she went back into football. And at the time, I didn't really think a huge amount about it. And then when I was telling my wife about it, and she just said, "Oh, but it was Josh, who was a friend of ours who passed." And she was like, "Was there any yellow, on the bird?" Because we had a thing where everybody wore yellow at the funeral and stuff like that. And it wasn't almost like, again, as I say in the last verse, didn't have a message for it. I didn't feel like I almost kind of witnessed this I don't know, communication. And at the same time, I think I remember when as a kid, one of my dad's good friends passed away, and a little robin used to come and tap on the window, and no one in the family ever questioned whether it was Graham or not. It was like that was Graham coming back. And there's something nice about it, I've spoke a lot about birds visiting people off the back of the song, and there's no one. It doesn't seem like religious, or it's a way of sort of like, it doesn't even seem spiritual. It's quite matter of fact when people tell me about it. They're like, and then I was driving home, and this bird came by, and I knew it was Susie. And it's I think it's a really fascinating just sort of idea really. And and once, from that, after that thing, when Lizzie said that, and I was like, just that idea, I just, I said, I sat down to write the song and just sort of plucked it out of thin air. And ever since I've been playing it, I've been talking, people have either emailed me or come up to me after gigs and told me about these experiences that they have, which is, to me, has just kind of added so much weight to it. I mean, I've been playing it live for, ultimately since I wrote it. And so it was good to know that it has this life. Before I took it into the studio, I already knew that the song kind of meant a lot to a bunch of people. So, and now it's out in the world.
Yeah, and it's incredible concept and just such a fantastic song. And it's getting a lot of interaction, as you say, people coming to you and talking about it. I did also notice, because I follow him on Twitter, or we should call it X these days. Obviously, Adam Hills from Last Leg, who obviously gave you a shout out after Glasgow last year. He's even shared it and obviously said such a beautiful song. So I mean, that must be, the response must be really cool for you.
It is nice. Yeah. That's Adam Hills. He's been kind to me on Twitter for a while. And we did I didn't actually know his stuff, but every time he retweeted or said something nice, but I sort of acknowledged that he had, quite a wide reach. And then I sort of tried to look, I was like, I don't really watch TV and blah, blah, but he got in touch at Glastonbury and was like, do you want to come and can you do a song as part of my set in the cabaret tent? So I did. It was me, Adam Hills and Basil Brush.
What a trio.
What a trio. Yeah, all on stage. And I sung On and On, I think. And then he was like, if you just want to do a song and then just hang around, and if you've got and I actually, on the walk over, I came up with a gag. And I said to Basil Brush, he was like, anybody got any questions? I was like, I've actually got a question for Basil Brush. And I was like, so Gordon the Gopher, I was like, was he a victim or or a part of it? And Basil Brush went, I'm the only one from the 70s that ain't going to jail. That was a Glastonbury highlight for me. I mean, that shit doesn't happen at most festivals, does it? It was like on stage making sort of, I don't know, pedo jokes with Basil Brush. So he's a great guy. I met him off the back of that, and we hung out a little bit at Glasgow. And he's a real good guy.
Yeah, what a surreal
experience.
Happen
on a TV show, but I'm sure that time will come.
Hopefully, definitely. I do enjoy The Last Leg, so it'd be great to see you on there. And I picked up on when you said obviously about the story of the song, that your daughter was obviously at a football club in the local church. Was that the same location the video was filmed? Because I really enjoyed the video as well.
That was the idea, because I was like, well, that's where we should do it, in a church hall. And you know what, being as I've spent my whole life kind of booking out venues and arranging things, the hardest thing to book is that church hall. I couldn't get in touch with anyone. They was like, they was sort of and I. So actually, that's not the one. And it's another local church hall, but that was the idea. It was to go back there. And when I couldn't get that one, I got another, to be honest. And the one that we did go to, it was probably a little bit prettier, and their piano was in tune, so it was a little bit, we only had, but even that, we was in between some sort of antenatal class and like a children's jiu-jitsu class on a Tuesday, and we had a 2-hour window to get in, get everything set up and get that tune recorded and out. So church halls are more sought after than you think.
Yeah, clearly. But I mean, I love music videos, and there'll be a link in the bio for listeners to go and check that one out. It fits the song so perfectly, and it's a great little video. So definitely encourage listeners to do that. And obviously, the song it features on the new album, which obviously, as fans of you should be aware, is going to be out on December the 1st, because you release a new album same day every year, your birthday. This year it's called The Toothpaste and the Tube. So what can you tell us around the themes? Because you always write about what's going on in the moment. What are the themes that have fed into this album?
This record, I think my last like 4 maybe 5 records, they all had like an overarching theme, which sort of like, not that every song was about it, but it was like the overall Survivor of the Friendliest was all about the positivity in the world, and then in the inevitable train wreck was kind of about climate collapse. And I'd done a bunch of records that had a theme running through. And for this record, I kind of wanted to do more like old school Beans on Toast record, where it's like every song has a definite theme, but it doesn't necessarily need to have a coherent. I mean, if there was a theme, it would be the world at the moment, this sort of the modern world. But so we got as we said, the song about Send Me a Bird. There's a song called The Greenwash about, environmental shit show that is greenwashing. There's a song called Against the War, which was written about the Ukraine-Russian conflict. And then also there's a song about swimming in the sea, song about touring. What else? Song about AI, artificial intelligence. So it's like each song is has a sort of a subject of its own that doesn't necessarily need to play into the next one. It's just a collection of songs, of sort of standalone songs that sit on this record, basically.
Yeah, a bit more of a traditional Beans album, as you say, and obviously fans of you that have caught you on tour earlier this year, obviously would have seen and heard a few of those songs live. So it's definitely one the listeners need to get a copy of it and check out for sure. And you've worked on this album because, again, on your most recent albums, you've obviously worked with sort of different people on each one, and this time around it was Ferris and Sylvester. So what was the experience like working with those?
Yeah, incredible. I know Ferris and Sylvester from kind of back in the day at Spiritual Bar, a little place in Camden, where a bunch of real sort of like great hub for musicians. And they've kind of, they're one of the spiritual success stories, really. So I know them from there. And it was mainly, they produced an album by a guy called Jack Francis, which was my favorite record of last year or the year before last. I love him. And then when I heard his record, I was like, this is amazing. And I basically said, who produced this? And he was like, oh, Ferris and Sylvester did it. And Jack, who's a friend, he said, oh, they've got a wicked home studio in Wiltshire. It's a great experience. They did a great job. So I went to Archie from Ferris and Sylvester, and I basically said, I want an album that sounds like a Jack Francis album. So we got the same musicians in. We got Ross, who plays with Jack, and set out to do that. Not that it sounds like a Beans on Toast record rather than a Jack Francis album, but that heavy on the Hammond organ. Yeah, so they've got a little home studio set up in down in Wiltshire, just underneath where the wicked White Horse on the cliff. So I'd sort of spend the mornings up by the White Horse, come down, and it was it was really lovely sort of a family setup because they got a little baby Lucky, who was maybe 6 months old. So it was all really sort of just a sort of not humble. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a sort of like really lovely. We'd eat some good food, have a nice walk, and then just sit down. Turn the sort of living room turns into the live room. And Archie's just a bit. I mean, they're all just brilliant musicians, basically. I mean, like more and more now with my albums, I'm kind of happy to hand over the keys to the car. So I write the songs, and then I'm just like, what would you, if this was your song, what would you do? And I find that if I take out my guitar playing, if you get musicians to play along with me, there's only one thing you can really do. It just sort of ends up going dun. But if it's like, if you take my guitar playing out and use the song, I mean, even actually, there's a song on this called The Greenwash, where I wrote it without any instruments at all. I just wrote it in my head and had the sort of melodies, and I was like, right, this is how this song goes. Do The Greenwash, and just sung it. And I was like, you've got to come up with the music for it completely. And that's a real it's a highlight of the album, actually, The Greenwash. And it's got me thinking maybe I should write more songs without guitar, just come up with a concept, just do the writing and then get other people to put music to it. But it was, the album it came together really easily, which is always a good sign. And it was just a lot of fun, and just that we did it in 2 sittings. Because I wanted to get some music out early this year, so we had like Back Out on the Road and the Three Stooges and stuff. We really recorded them, got them out, and then went back for another blast. Was there for about a week, moved into the family setting, and it was it was easy, which I think recording albums should be, basically, if it's easy and good fun. And Yeah, and hopefully I'll do some stuff with them as well. I think in my head it would have been nice to do some live gigs with them as the band, but they was just a bit busy for stuff like that. But yeah, our paths continue to cross, and looking forward to everybody to hear it, basically.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I've had a sneak peek, and it is, again, just another fantastic record. And I just love that you do as you do now, and obviously work with different musicians on each record. Because, not that obviously the one man and his guitar sort of, sound was getting boring, because it wasn't. Because again, you were always right about what's happening in the moment, which keeps it fresh. But it just has added a kind of another sort of bow to your set, as it were.
I mean, it's album 16, isn't it? So it needs to be.
Yeah.
Imagine it, 16 albums of dung, 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 dung. It's it needs to. I've always, and that's something I'll continue to do. Different musicians, different studio, for the same song, and then you got a new record.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic. So definitely encourage listeners to go and check that out. And obviously, December the 1st, as it should be a given, is coming out. So listeners, make sure you are all over that one. And obviously, the tour dates start today as we record this. Obviously, it will take a little while for the episode to come out, a few days. So the tour is going to be in full swing as people listen to this podcast. And Beans, you've always been someone that gets out and plays a good amount of show. There's bands and musicians out there that will play, maybe 5 or 6 cities, the big cities, and that's it. And I mean, you are just, it'd be easier for me to list the venues you're not playing probably than the venues you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, even now, this tour, even after years of doing it, still breaking new ground. I mean, I've never played a gig in Pocklington before, but I'm in Pocklington the week after next, and in Moseley. So this is definitely the tour for the Toothpaste and the Tube tour is kind of split between two runs. There's this run in November and December, which visits, I don't want to call it B markets, but the sort of the smaller towns and cities, I guess, and also completely new ground. So we're also in, where else are we going? Like Tunbridge Wells, Guildford, we're in Blackpool. Smaller towns and cities, I guess. And then in February, March next year, there's another run, which will be London, Manchester, Newcastle, Leeds, the kind of the biggest cities of the country. So certainly covering, as much ground as I can, basically. I mean, there's no secret how much I enjoy touring and how much sort of sense it makes for me. Like I'm still, just feel forever grateful that I just get to continue to do it, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad you say that you enjoy it, because obviously on this podcast we always talk about the live dates coming up with whoever the guest is, and I always find myself saying, what can the listeners expect this time round? And obviously prepping this interview, it's like, well, we know what to expect from a Beans show. It's going to be a great night of songs and stories. It's just going to be like a community coming together. It's just going to be just like a really enjoyable sort of night. So I wanted to aim the question more at you and just say, you do tour so much. What makes life on the road such an enjoyable experience for you? What do you love about playing shows?
There's not much I don't like, really. I mean, there's the obviously the actually being on stage and what you get from that is pretty unparalleled in, you can't really go anywhere else for that kind of fix. And so, but that aside, I know it's quite common that people sort of like say they go for all the rest of the rigmarole in order to have, to do that bit. But that's not how I see it. Like I think that the setup that we have, because we have sort of simple setup, there's not like long sound checks or anything like that. So we'll spend the days, at local parks or, just sort of ultimately hanging out, visiting the country or visiting friends or family that are in that part of the world. And yeah, like I, again, normally tour with different people as well. So I've got like a couple of new musicians on this run. So it's just sort of like a group of friends traveling around, like even the drives, I don't see them as I really like my van and we all hang out, listen to some music, meet new people, get down, and then, music venues, I find it fascinating seeing the inner workings of all the different venues. A lot of them I'm going back to visit old friends in these venues or new ones. Again, there's, plus sides to both of those things. I think it's weird with touring that a lot of people, I don't know who started the kind of rumor that it's a hard thing to do or it's a bad thing to do. But I find more and more, like if I'm speaking to, like one of my mates from one of my daughter's mates' parents, like a dad friend, yeah, and I'll say I'm going on tour for 3 weeks, rather than being like, oh, lucky you. Most people are like, oh, dude, that sounds tough. And it's like, fucking hell. I don't know who started that. Like you're basically traveling around. Everywhere I go, I get treated really nicely by friends and strangers alike. I eat nice food, get pissed every night, high five, and, pretty much do whatever I want. And for that, I mean, the jobs that I used to do before I did this, I worked in fucking factories. Like, and the idea that you can do this stuff that would effectively, like, I don't know I think, but the song on this album, Back Out on the Road, was trying to put a bit more romance back into touring as well, because I feel like people will, and everybody, everybody's got their right to an opinion about things. And obviously it's not for everyone. But I always, when I was a kid, and certainly in country music and stuff like that, it's something to really aspire to.
Yeah.
You people, I wanted to tour. And it was like, it wasn't that I didn't tour because I thought it'd be hard. It was just like, how do you go about doing it? And I think that it should be, certainly with Back Out on the Road, I wanted it to let people know that it is, it can be a beautiful way to make a living and a beautiful life, and that people should, again, that's what music is, isn't it? It's something you can aspire to be and do, and sort of like, and I really worry that it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If you keep on reading think pieces about how touring there's no money in it, and it's bad on your mental health, and blah blah this that. I read a lot of sort of like people shit talking touring, and not many people going, fucking hell, I'm lucky to do this, and what a beautiful way to spend, to live your life, basically. So I'm definitely, I feel like it's important to let people know how much I enjoy it now for that reason.
Yeah, it is really important to because like you say, at some point the tide has turned, and there's been this rhetoric around, obviously with streaming and everything, there's not, the money there, so therefore bands are forced out, and to say forced out on the road more to make a living instantly puts it in a negative, doesn't it? Because they should
exactly that
to go out, they should be enjoying
and also if you couple that with the kind of, the very necessary campaigns, but the campaigns around music venues, where it's like, at a glance, it's like music venues are struggling, they're hard to make money, touring's terrible, there's no money in music. It's like, if that's all you hear, no one's gonna make fucking music. It's just be like, you look at it and be like, well, let's stay as far away from that as possible. And like I said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? So it's, it should be, open new music venues, go on tour, aspire towards doing this, because what you get back is fucking worth it.
Yeah, no, very much agree, definitely, and leads quite nicely onto my next question. To be fair, because there's again a lot of talk out there about music festivals, and it's so hard to put on a music festival, etc., etc. And you've now got the Foolhardy Folk Festival that has become a yearly tradition, and I know you work with a great team of people to put that on. So obviously, there is life in music festivals. The new ones are still popping up, and I managed to get to it this year, and it was just an incredible day. Like, just a beautiful atmosphere. So much, just togetherness. It didn't matter whether you're in a family group or on your own or how you attended. Like, everyone just came together. And it was a party, and everyone enjoyed the music. So it's such a great festival, and I encourage anyone to come along to that for sure. So, what were your thoughts on this year's festival? How did you think it went?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I love it. Like, I mean, like it's that kind of fell on my lap almost, the Foolhardy Folk Festival. I mean, like you said, there's, for all the work that goes into putting that on, doors open at midday and I arrive at like 11:30, it's all done. And I just check my guitar, go, open up the doors, and obviously I'd sort of booked it and, did the artwork or sort of arranged the artwork. So I certainly have a part to play, but all the difficult bits around that are taken by DHP, which is a promoter that I've been working with for years, and they do all the difficult stuff. I do all the fun stuff. And and hoorah. But yeah, it's this year, every year it's just been, I don't know, I guess perhaps leading up to it, I do get a little bit like, I've got a lot of riding on it, more so, especially in the summer where I'm just bouncing between other people's festivals. And I think to begin with, I remember my first year, the year before I played some festival in Somerset that was, like 4 stages and a dance tent and people DJing out the back of electronic sort of like bugs that were driving around and loads of stuff going on. And that was like definitely a festival. And I was like, fuck, I'm calling mine a festival. All I've got is a bandstand, 7 bands and a bar. Is it even really a festival? But I think once I got there, that and sort of living it out, the simplicity of it is where the real treat is, where it's like, it's so beautiful. You've got the trees in the arboretum, so it's like natural beauty, which you don't need to decorate at all. And then it's just like the music's good. And I like that fact of there isn't really anything to do apart from watch the bands. It's like get a place, sit down and just kind of get on with it. And that's you sorted. And it finishes quite early. So it's like, it's a sort of simple but effective is how I like to sort of view Foolhardy Folk Festival, which is, I guess, is sort of similar to how I'd like to present my music as well. And it's been great just being able to, offer out shows to friends. Like now when I see a good band, I'm like, do you want to come and play? I've got, got a festival that I could book you on and, and have a bit of budget to play with on that. So yeah, Foolhardy's great. It's got to go ahead this year. Nice. Sorry, for 2024. So I'm just looking around and just getting that booked up now. But I'm glad you came down and enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. It really, really was. And one of my lasting memories in life will be my 2 kids singing "On and On" was the last song, and them two just really, for the first time, buying in. I've been dragging them to festivals since they were 7 weeks old, but first time leaving it, they were really buzzing. They were singing the song still all up the road. They just had such a great day. It was such a fantastic. So thank you, obviously, for creating that memory for me. No. It's absolutely fantastic. And obviously, you talk about the freedom you got to curating the lineup and everything. So I mean, how much of a challenge is it for you to obviously, because as you say, it's not multiple stages, it's one stage, so I guess there's not many slots, and you strike me as someone that probably has a lot of friends out there that would want to play. Is it difficult to
that's the thing. It's just sort of like not, if I could have more, it's whittling it down, I suppose, is the thing. And it's also, I mean, there's also needing to book it to bands that I can't be too far at my own arse, because some of my favorite musicians no one's heard of. I could book it. I could spend the whole day on bands that no one is necessarily gonna. I'd like to get it to a point where I don't necessarily need any names on it to be able to sell it out. And then I could just be like, just trust me, I know you've never heard of Dylan Warnock, but you're gonna love him, and sort of get to that position, which, I guess it's sort of moving towards that. But obviously having, like friends that are like Skinny Lister, obviously been working with them for years, and so it was just like family having them there. And it was great.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. I think you're almost there. So it sold out this year. So I'm pretty sure, with the momentum of it is just a great day out, people will just start religiously. Yeah, you know what? August Bank Holiday weekend is Foolhardy Folk Festival.
So
I go and I don't care who's playing.
Trying to keep it as cheap as we possibly can.
Yeah,
as well, because I think that's everything's, and the cost to put it on are rising, but it's just make it accessible as possible.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic ethos to have, and it's definitely going to pay off, I think, because, I would encourage, again, listeners to this, if you haven't been, head along, check it out, because you won't regret it. Obviously, also the listeners aren't going to regret checking out the Toothpaste and the Tube. And everything great coming from you, as there always is at the end of every year, tours, albums. You know that come autumn, the leaves start falling off the trees. Beans on Toast is out there
Yeah,
doing its thing.
yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Listeners, definitely check all that out. We've got one question left, which is a regular feature on the podcast that has been brought in kind of the last maybe 15 or so episodes now, because we always end up on this podcast talking with the guests about a few of the issues in the music industry, and we kind of touched on a couple as we went through the touring and everything. So it's called Magic Wand, and we're going to step into fantasy land for a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a magic wand. And with that magic wand, you can change one thing about the music industry, but one thing only, and that's where it gets quite tough. So, Jay, with the magic wand I'm going to give you, what would you change in the music industry?
Change in the music industry. I'd probably have more people going to gigs. Actually, I think, that's it. Just people that don't normally go to gigs would suddenly feel like, oh, I might go out to a show tonight.
Yeah.
So to enlarge the culture.
Yeah, that would certainly solve a lot of the sort of problems that we have talked about over the last few episodes of this podcast. Getting people out and about and just making everything more accessible so people feel able to get out and about. And I mean, as I've touched on throughout this, your shows are so inclusive. It's such a community around your shows. I think if every sort of musical scene and community could be a bit more like yours, I think that would be a good one to do. Just sprinkle that fairy dust out there.
We are getting magical. I gotta get my daughter's toys out.
Yeah, no, perfect. We haven't even talked about the Dragacorn either, but no, fantastic. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Jay, and I really appreciate you giving up time, obviously on the first day of the tour, to do so with me again.
Yeah, no worries, man. Lovely to chat, and I'll see you out there.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Beans on Toast. Do check out his new album, The Toothpaste and the Tube, which is out on December the 1st. And of course, follow Beans across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from him. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.